live here. They come in to work every day. We have about 12%, 11 to 12% of our people go outside to work in the city. So you took that delta of 12 to 13%, and we'd have a negative unemployment rate. So if you look, probably the strongest unemployment rates on the border are Laredo, but that's kind of a standalone city. Laredo first, El Paso, and then McAllen. But they're both standalone cities and don't have 23 other cities they're competing with in their area. So if you looked at Laredo's 3.6, it looks strong, but if we were by ourselves, with that delta included, we'd be about a negative 4% unemployment rate. So it shows we're doing a lot of jobs. And so the second prong we're going to talk about is raising wages, making sure that our employees have opportunities to get the education and training they need, and then make the job opportunities there. So I'm very excited this evening we're going to open up the first research center with the new university. And that's one of our prongs, that's the kind of opportunities we want, not only for training, but opportunities. But let me get back to my original one, is small business. So that's important because they employ a lot of people. You know, if you look at, if there's any large companies out there, I apologize.
There's not here, I promise.
If you look at the people that really can participate in charitable organizations and doing all that, it's the small business people. Percentage-wise, it's tremendous compared to the large agencies. Not that we don't need them, but we certainly need small business. So that's great that you guys are giving opportunities, and you know, what they say, 70% of the small businesses fail, but 30% are good, and they get built on. And so encouraging them is important, helping them is even more important, and keeping the entrepreneurs, leadership in our community, which has been very important, is what you guys are doing. So thanks for being here. And any suggestions for the city, let me know.
Any questions? This is your chance. You get a small group with the mayor, so here's a chance to ask questions if you may have any with the mayor. No. Just stunned silence.
Don't express what's fast.
When they finish that, then we start on the interchange, you know. And so one of the things they wanted to do is they wanted to put 2nd Street at grade. And I thought, well, why would you do that? $20-something million project. And when you looked at it, all it was really going to add was a turnaround. It has a turnaround, but you have to go through 2 red lights to get there. And so if you looked at it, it would be a turnaround, and the only beneficiary would be the north side of the expressway between 2nd and 10th Street. So you're talking about 3 or 4 hotels, maybe 1 or 2 restaurants for $20 million. And so I thought, and you can still get there, by the way. All you have to do is go around that way. And there is no north-south access between 10th and 2nd because Lindbergh, it all dead ends at Lindbergh or Houston. So we got them not to do that. And so we're going to do some other things. I thought the turnaround at Jackson in the expressway is much more important, much more complicated project, but not $20 million. So we're not going to do 2nd Street. That's the good point. We are going to fix up all the ramps in the aprons to that. The aprons, like on 2nd, go from Lindbergh all the way to Savannah. The state's responsible for that. They're in terrible condition, so we're going to get 2nd, obviously, Bicentennial, Main Street, and 23rd Street redone to better access traffic on the expressway. But as soon as they finish this, they're going to do the interchange. And so that'll be Fire's problem.
So the grade level for Bicentennial is another year before it's complete, or is it?
Yeah, it's got about 11 months. So hopefully they'll get that finished a little sooner. It's been tough on some of the merchants along that way. So, but that'll be a good project. And then I think what we're doing now is I think we have north-south traffic when Bicentennial gets extended to 107, which I have to go to a meeting today with District Number 3. That's our last holdup, is District Number 3 getting a right-of-way agreement with them. We're ready to go. It's already designed, ready to be let, and so that could be finished within a year. 29th Street's gotten its way already. Ware Road's going to be widened all the way to 107, and then they're going to start, when that finishes, they'll start that from 107 to Monte Cristo, and Taylor Road will be widened. So we pretty well accomplished north-south. East-west is a bigger challenge. We'll probably do Freddie Gonzalez will go all the way across. Mile 5, you know, that one kind of goes through Alton in that area. That's we're supposed to do that. It's already, the project's ready to go, except the county has $1 million short. They told us yesterday on that, so we're looking at that. So we're trying to do east-west corridors. We're never going to get a crosstown expressway. Years ago, when Von and Walker and I were buying right away for Trenton, we said, you know, Bicentennial was wide enough with the district right away to do an expressway. It was over 200 feet. And so we were doing the Trenton, and the only thing at Trenton was Bird Ogden on the corner of Business 281. And so he said, we went to the city commission and said, we think we could build a crosstown expressway that way, loop. And it was, at the time, it was only $52 million, and they said, get out of here, that's great. And so I wish I'd been mayor, because I'm a lot smarter as mayor than I was as city. But that's lost now, obviously, with Trenton, the way it's grown. So we're never going to have a crosstown. The outer loop is 490. If you know where 490 is, that's Edinburgh's airport. And that road there, McAllen's there. We're at 490. Our city limits run up to 490 now. In anticipation of that ever happening, we want to have some partners out there. So we have ETJ and city limits, but that's years down the road. And so, anyways.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you for
stopping by.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, real quick. So what we want to do is then have you introduce yourselves. I know you guys are presenting, but then we're going to go through and let everybody see who's kind of in the room here. So.
Good morning, my name is Ana Vidal, and I'm coming from Creative Arts Studio.
Hello everyone, Augusto Contreras, Creative Arts Studio.
Good morning, Suzette Lopez, Creative Arts Studio.
Jorge Sanchez, McAllen Chamber.
David Gerald, one of the founders of 1 Million Cups here, and today I'm here representing Global Artisanal Brands.
Lisa Ramirez Resmigan. Good morning, I'm Bella Ayala, and I'm from McAllen Chamber.
Right there behind you. Joe, who you with? Go on. I'm with nobody, right?
Lydia, I work at STC. I'm Jackie Michelle. I'm the founder.
Marco Garza, Independent Financial Advisor.
Stephanie Davis, Grace Kombucha.
Carlos Hinojosa, Darlan Associates in Interpreting and Translating. Eduardo Millet, student.
Yeah, tell me what you're working on in your PhD.
I'm working I am a PhD student at the University of UTRGV. I'm working on maker fairs and kind of like independent innovation.
Pues Cantú, McAllen Chamber of Commerce.
All right, Jorge, you're up, my friend.
All right. Just give me a second.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming and for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. Today we have the usual two entrepreneurs telling their story, making their 6-minute pitch. And the whole idea, just to remind yourself why we do this, is for us to support the entrepreneurs that are here in front. The main question is how we can help as a community the entrepreneurs that will be pitching here. So with that said, please join me in welcoming David Gerald. He's the founder of Global Artisan Brands, and he seeks to identify and bring to the market artisan beverage products of superior quality and authentic cultural content.
There you go.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, Jorge's getting ready to start the timer. I've asked him for a little bit of indulgence. I'm taking the advantage today of practicing our investor pitch, so I need a little more than 6 minutes. So I'm going to bleed a little bit into the Q&A if y'all will indulge me. So with that,
Is it on?
Pause the clock.
yeah.
Okay, I'll
There we
move it
go.
from.
All right. So, good morning. I am David Geralt, and I am the co-founder and chairman and CEO of Global Artisanal Brand Holdings. And as Jorge indicated, we seek to identify and bring to market craft artisanal beverages of superior quality and authentic cultural context. Let me tell you quickly a little bit of a story about how we came about, because it happened actually 2 years ago this week. My business partner was visiting Chiapas, Mexico, and he discovered rediscovered a regional craft beverage they have down there called Posh, which is a blend of kind of moonshine that they create regionally. And he was shocked that right here under our nose, just a few miles to our south, there's this craft artisanal beverage that no one's ever heard of and that no one's brought to market. So he came back, we met about 6 months later, and a year ago, Global Artisanal Brands was created with the mission of locating and identifying those small regional craft beverages and trying to bring them to the greater beverage market. If you'll go ahead. So first I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity and what's going on in the beverage industry so that you can have a little better understanding of why we think this is such an important play at this particular time. The beverage industry, alcohol represents about 60.5% of the total beverage industry. Distilled alcohol is 7% of that number. Distilled alcohol has been growing at a compounded annual growth rate of about 2.5% for 20 years. Extending that out over the next few years at about a 1.92% growth rate, there's about 22 million cases more alcohol will be consumed. So there's room in the market for more products. Next slide. The other interesting thing that's happening is that all of that growth is happening in the premium spirit section, which is the higher end section of the market, priced above about $30, $35 a bottle for a whiskey, for example, rather than in the non-premium. Non-premium is growing at 2.9%, whereas premium is growing at almost 24%. Another trend in the industry, though, is that the big brands are not growing. There's a reason for this, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. The big brands are losing market share in every segment. Rum, tequila, vodka, across the board. Whiskey, all of the major brands are losing market share. The tail is extending out as smaller craft beverages are taking hold. Next slide. But that doesn't mean that craft beverages can't break out. A couple of examples here you may have heard of: Tito's Vodka, Fireball Whiskey. Tito's has been growing at about a 50% compounded annual growth rate for the last 5 or 6 years. Tito's Vodka, based in Austin, is now worth $3.2 billion. 20-year-old company. Started literally making vodka in his garage at night and selling it during the day. Fireball also launched out of Austin. In fact, one of our co-founders and advisors was on the team that helped launch Fireball a few years ago in Austin. Next slide. So what's the problem? Next slide. The issue and why we think the large brands are stalling out and the smaller craft brands are gaining traction has to do with the structure of the alcoholic beverage market. The millennials make up the 21 to 35-year-old segment. That's all millennials nowadays. The 21 to 35-year-old segment has historically been the largest consumer of alcohol. Go figure, it's the young folks with disposable income and no kids. Us older folks drink also, but it's because we have kids. But the millennials like authentic artisanal products. They like genuine things. They don't like things that are manufactured, things that are mass-produced. And that's where the big brands fall in the market. So we think there's an opportunity, and this explains that trend toward the smaller craft beverages. So what's our solution? We have created, and I apologize for this slide, I'll have my graphic folks work on that, but we basically created a process through our initially identifying the posh beverage and trying to bring it to market. We've created a process that we can put a product through to identify the proper market segment and brand positioning and bring it to the market. Next slide. Let's start a little bit about our traction. Our first product is Toulon. I have samples if anybody wants a little shot for their coffee this morning. Toulon is actually a whiskey. It's a variant on the posh product that we initially identified. Due to the market segmentation in the U.S., we pivoted and made it a whiskey instead of marketing it as posh. But it's a corn-based whiskey. It's being distilled down in Chiapas. Our first about 300 liters are ready to go in the barrels, and we hope to bring that to market in January. Next slide. Here's a rendering of our branding that we put together for posh. Why are we doing it as a whiskey? Well, the foreign whiskey segment, again in that craft segment, is growing dramatically. The French, the Japanese, and India are all moving into the craft whiskey market. Mexico hasn't yet, but Mexico is right at our back door and is so well known with tequila and mezcal that we think there's an opportunity to piggyback on that with a whiskey. As far as our product pipeline, we're not just a whiskey company. We're not just a single product company. We've identified pulque, which is made from the shoots of the agave plant that are trimmed off as the agave grows before it's turned into a tequila. This isn't the brand we'll be launching, but we're working with the producer of that brand to bring their product to the U.S. We hope to have a letter of intent with them in the next few months. The posh was our original product. We still want to bring that back to the market at some point. And then we've identified Waraki, which is a gin that's produced in Uganda. It was produced by the rebels and used as to feed the army basically during the uprisings in the 1950s and 1960s, and it's now very popular in East Africa, and we're looking at bringing that product. Here's just an example of some of our marketing and the collateral that we put together with respect to the Posh brand. So who's our customer? The unique thing about our process is that we're not marketing to a single customer. Our customer is the greater beverage market as a whole, and through our market research and through our branding team that we've put together, we seek to identify who is the ideal customer for the beverage that we've identified to bring to market. So our customer is really the whole market, and we've got a process to identify and drill down based on what they drink, where they drink, how they consume their beverage, as well as their different personal preferences. Next slide. Our business model is basically the traditional business model for bringing a beverage to market. That is, you lose a lot of money up front. You're basically buying market share. So we'll be investing heavily in marketing and branding and bringing the product to market. A quote recently was that it takes about $1 million to bring a brand to market in a large state, and about $300,000 to $500,000 to bring it to market in a smaller state. So we're going to be raising capital in order to bring this product to market. The exit strategy is the game with this. Next slide. In terms of exits are really big. The beverage industry is doing the same thing that the pharmaceutical industry is and everyone else. They're not doing their own R&D. They're not developing their own new products. They're letting the entrepreneurs and innovators create the products. Once those products start to break out, they go in and buy those. They invest heavily in those, and they have the branding straight to make them global. Casamigos, if anybody's ever heard of George Clooney, he's kind of famous. He sold his tequila company for $1 billion. He had $56 million in revenue the year he sold it. So, Angel's Envy, it's up there somewhere. Angel's Envy sold for $300 million. Tequila Avion completed their sale. They partnered with Pernod and then completed their sale earlier this year. One of the Avion founders is also working with us. Next slide. So who's our team? I've got myself. I'm a Valley native. Lifelong whiskey drinker. That's my expertise. I'm also the finance and numbers guy. My partner, Diego Trevino, was one of my students up at Trinity. He's the one who found Posh down in Chiapas. He's in charge of marketing and creative. He's a 2017 graduate of Trinity. Joe Castillo, also a Valley guy. You may know the Martin family. Joe's wife is Robert and Tina Martin's daughter. Joe worked with Fireball. He's worked with Angel's Envy. He's working with Kimosabi Mezcal now, and he's one of our advisors. In addition to that, Bebidas Espirituosas de Chiapas is our distiller that we're working with, and our Trevino agency. You may recognize that name, Steve. I think they've done a little bit of work for you guys here at the Chamber. Our Trevino does all of our creative. Diego's dad is Mr. Trevino. So that's our connection. So we basically have the Trevino agency in-house as part of the brand. Next slide. As far as what we're doing with the project, we're looking to raise $325,000 for our first round. We're doing that as a SAFE, which I can explain during the Q&A, the deal structure for that. We're anticipating going into a full seed round in the spring of next year. This is just the money to get us through finishing production and the initial marketing of the product. The milestones and the pulque, which by the way is a mistake. We thought we'd have the letter of intent with pulque done, so we won't launch that this year. But the other milestones we'll reach with this funding are the full batch whiskey production. We'll produce 9,000 liters, and we'll launch that in the first quarter. So that's my presentation. Thank you all very much. And first of all, if anybody's interested in investing, Mayor, if the city has some economic development funds, you can own a whiskey brand.
So, David, obviously importing, there's a lot of regulations.
Yes.
So, tell us where you are on that process, being licensed to be able to import. And
there's basically 3 layers to the licensing. Number one, you have to have an importer who's licensed by the TTB, I forget what it stands for, but it's basically the alcohol. Trade and Tax Bureau, basically, of the Treasury Department. So we have our TTB importer's license. We are a licensed importer. both for distilled spirits and for wines.
Okay.
We are in the process of finalizing our formula. The next step is to get a formula approval. We just have, and the sample there is actually is our pilot run of the whiskey. We just finished a 6-month aging of that whiskey, so we've defined what the methodology is going to be to produce and bottle. Now that we have that formula, we'll apply for formula approval within the next few weeks or months. Once we get the formula approval, then the last step is to apply for the label approval.
Okay.
And then we'll be ready to import. And we also have already filed trademark protection on the 2 lines.
And in TABC, Texas, since you're coming in the state of Texas?
We are not going to hold inventory in Texas the way we've structured it. So we've got what's called a non-resident seller's permit. We already have that licensing. We'll just have to file the label, but once the feds have approved the label, then it's Texas basically rubber stamps.
So why are you not going to warehouse in Texas?
Right now we're launching in Texas as our first state. So we will actually deliver directly from the distillery to the distributor. So we won't hold any inventory. It'll go straight to the distributor. That saves us about $5,000 a year in licensing fees, plus the cost of maintaining a warehouse and doing all that. One nuance we may do is we may actually inventory in the foreign trade zone. We've looked at that. If we bring the product and hold it in the foreign trade zone, TABC has no jurisdiction there, so we don't have to have the TABC licensing to hold it.
What
Other
about
questions?
price point for your...
Price point, our target right now is $39.99 retail, so on the shelf in Feldman's, and that's kind of the low midpoint of the premium category, which is that category that's seeing all of the growth. Interesting enough, other than Tito's, there's really not a lot of growth, like I indicated, in that lower price point, below $30. The market is kind of flat. Millennials seem to be willing to pay more for whiskey, and we want to accommodate that.
And then your exit strategy is to sell the company, right?
Well, our exit strategy is to sell the brand.
The brand.
What we want to do is basically develop a pipeline. Mayor, thank you for coming. You're welcome to have a shot of whiskey before you head out. Our goal is to develop a pipeline of brands that we're bringing to market, as I indicated in that slide. So the goal is to, as the brands each reach a traction level, is to potentially exit individual brands and then use that to continue funding the habit.
Are you going to do tequila?
Tequila is a really crowded space, and there are a lot of really big players. If you look at, it's not, if you click me back a couple of slides, there you go, that one there. There's a lot of tequila acquisitions on that slide. So the big brands of tequila are owned by the big guys. And then there are a lot of well-established kind of second-tier tequilas, so we probably won't play in that space. Mezcal is kind of getting the same way. On top of that, they're predicting an agave shortage in the next few years. By the way, so invest in tequilas as a side tip. They're predicting an agave shortage, which could affect tequila production as well. So we went with something that's a little bit more sustainable. You can grow corn twice a year in Chiapas versus 7 to 15 years to grow an agave plant.
So I'm going to ask you a really hard question. I know you're biased. So how does the whiskey taste?
It's really, really good. It's very smooth. It's very smooth. It's very balanced. This is actually a little lighter alcohol than what we're ultimately producing. This was a 40% alcohol. This was a test batch that was aged 120 days. And so we diluted it a little bit because it was coming out of the test at like 55% alcohol, which was too strong. The final product, we have shipments on the way to Monterey currently, and those are coming out at 42.5% at a 6-month aging. And from what I'm hearing, they're exceptional. I haven't tasted the final product. I've tasted the interim, and I've tasted the White Dog that's coming straight out of the still. And it's really, really, really good stuff. I took this to a Super Bowl party, and several folks sampled it, and folks that are whiskey drinkers are like, wow, I would drink that. It's really interesting. And we didn't necessarily know this going in. A lot of times the beverage side is more experimentation than science, or guessing rather than applying what you know. There's in the concept of wine, there's the idea of terroir, and that is that the soil and the climate of the region affect the flavor of the wine almost as much as the variety of the grape. This whiskey has a kind of that smoky tequila-esque bent to the flavor, which we didn't necessarily intend or expect. We don't know if it's something about the terroir of the region that's doing that. The distiller also produces a product called Comiteco. Comiteco is actually produced with a high plains varietal of agave that grew in Chiapas traditionally. Comiteco used to be bigger than tequila. Tequila just had the political pull in the 1930s to kind of dominate the industry. So. Yes?
Are there other whiskeys coming out of Mexico?
There is one right now. There is a producer down in Oaxaca that's also doing a corn whiskey. Similar type product. He's a much higher price point. I think he's about $60 a bottle. But that's the only one right now.
You guys will be the first of that kind of?
Yeah, we'll be the first, at a lower price point, and we'll be the first one out of Chiapas.
How's your experience been doing business?
I've been doing Best in Mexico for 20 years, as you know. So I've been really amazed at doing business with folks in Chiapas. Chiapas kind of has a reputation of not being business friendly. But we have, knock on wood, we have found an excellent partner down there, extremely genuine family-owned business who's doing our distillation and our product development down there. And they are all in with us on this product and have been just extremely gracious and accommodating and really are partners with us. So that's been very positive. Dealing with the pulque guys in Mexico City has been a little bit more tedious. Like I said, we presented a letter of intent to them in January and we're still waiting to get it signed. So it's been a little bit more difficult, just a little bit less of a sense of urgency about bringing the product to market. But overall, like I said, it's what I've been doing for most of my career. So
I have a question.
Yes,
It might be just way off, but I was just curious about this. You mentioned, and I'll connect it, I promise, but you mentioned millennials and you found them interested in natural products. Would you also agree that they are concerned with social responsibility?
Yes.
You would agree? Okay.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
what's your experience then in working with Mexico, with maybe ensuring good working conditions, that they're being paid a fair wage, things like that?
Great point. And because I was limited on time, I didn't touch on that in the presentation, but thank you for bringing it up. That is something we're actually working on specifically. Ironically, in producing whiskey, one of the byproducts of the malting process of the corn is masa. So we're actually going to be donating all of the masa that we create from the malt process to food pantries in Chiapas to make tortillas. On top of it, yeah, I mean that's something very important. The sustainability, as well as the the wage conditions, things like that, are all things that we're looking to address. Obviously, we have to make a profit. We have to make a product to make a profit in order to achieve the social goals. But we do have that as an element of our brand policy. And if you look back at our core values, supporting the local communities where we produce is a piece of that. I am a passionate capitalist, and I believe that all ships rise with the tide, and if we can help the tide rise in the local communities in Chiapas, that the local communities will benefit from that. And so that's our which is a little bit contrarian to the Chiapas political view, I will say.
How can we help you?
Number one, in January, buy the product. I will let you know when it comes out. We'll launch in Austin initially, so it may be a while before it makes it down here. Follow us, buy the product. If you're interested in investing, and I know that's not the purpose of this event, but if you're interested in investing, we will be launching our investor round here shortly. That's the main thing, and that is just be a passionate consumer of craft beverages. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for investing in Chiapas. It's one of the states in Mexico with the highest amount of poverty,
yes,
and the highest amount of indigenous groups represented. And I believe that if you are aware of the social responsibility of your company, you'll be blessed by having the support of the millennials who are now their conscience is being awoken of the socially responsible companies and so forth, and you will be able to wake up the interest of the younger crowds.
Yes.
Which on the long term can be, once you get them,
Exactly.
you get a generation, you know, if you, even for marketing, you
Yes.
know, by doing good right now, it's a trending thing to
Yes.
do good.
Yes.
You know? And so if you can get up the attention, you can get the attention of the millennials as a socially responsible company, they'll be good at the end. You know,
Absolutely.
because you will get that. But as a very recent Mexican female immigrant,
Yes.
I'm from Monterrey, but we have served in Chiapas and in the Yucatan. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, thank you. I've been amazed by Chiapas. For those of you who used to be 15, 20, 30 years ago were travelers to San Miguel de Allende, San Cristobal is like San Miguel was probably 20, 30 years ago. I would encourage everyone in the room, if you get the opportunity to visit Chiapas, go to San Cristobal. It's a colonial city, it's beautiful. I didn't realize San Cristobal is at about 6,000 feet altitude. I didn't realize, my vision of Chiapas was all jungles and banana trees until I went down there. But the high plain is actually very, very, very fascinating place, and we're blessed to be able to do business there.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't take that tequila. I need it. Alright guys, so this is the part where we have a small break. If you need to restock on coffee, we have plenty on the back. We also have donuts, so I don't want to gain weight. I have a wedding this weekend, so please take them. Alright, so we have a short trivia question as part of our ritual. And I needed to talk about the daylight time savings because it has messed up my sleep patterns. So there's a lot of theories on how it started. Benjamin Franklin was half joking when he proposed it. A rumor about a bug collector going out of work and it was too dark in order for him to harvest their insects. But the whole idea for this was to save energy. But studies have shown that there's an increase of 1% of energy consumption during this period. So with that said, the question is, there's a particular benefit of the daily saving time. So the benefit is that there's a decrease in crime. Robberies decrease in how much percentage during this period? Any guesses? It's a percentage.
Say 10%.
10%? Nope. 50? Nope.
I'm partial to 42.5%.
25.
Close, but no.
28.
Stop. 35? No. Any other guesses?
22.
Close?
Yeah, 6.
Close.
27.
27. Alright, so the assumption is that since there's more light out there, like people tend to be scared of being seen, so there's a decrease of 27% in robberies. That's strange. So, woo! Congratulations, ring your bells, please. And there's a little German for you. We also miss you, David.
You can pour your whiskey.
There you go. Also, I have a couple of shirts, so if you want to switch it for a shirt, we can make that happen. So, okay, one more question. This daily saving time applies to the majority of the nation, except what 2 states?
Arizona.
Good. Good. Nice.
Ring your bells.
Okay, with that said, we're ready to start with our second presentation of today. His name is Augusto Contreras and Anna as well. Okay, and they are representing Creative Art Studios, a group of fine arts educators igniting growth and community development through music, dance, theater, and art. Please join me in welcoming Augusto.
without mic?
Without mic?
Yeah,
Sure.
you guys
Yeah.
can hear us, right?
You can
Awesome.
do it any way you
There you go. Thank you so much, Steve. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Augusto Contreras. Thank you for having us here today. And at my side is,
Ana Tirado.
we're here to talk about Creative Art Studio, but
Yeah, before we talk about Creative Art Studio, we would like to, before we talk about Creative Art Studio, we would like to talk a little bit about ourselves. So, my name is Ana Tirado, and I'm a musician, I'm a singer, and a mariachi performer. I started singing when I was 6 years old in church. And when I joined, when I was in school, during my school years, I was part of the music department. And as right now, I am actually singing in the mariachi of San Juan, the Basilica of San Juan del Valle. I have been there for 8 years, so that's me.
well, I'm a political science major. 10 years ago, I was working for the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for the Mexican government. I lived in Monterrey with my family. And you know, I was just doing my journey, doing my thing. I've always been a free spirit, always doing what I love, always moving around. Have the privilege of always having the choice to do what I want. 10 years ago, I was let go of that privilege due to a situation in Mexico. My whole family relocated to the valley. My dad, who's in the audience, had to face the big challenge of closing some of his businesses and moving his whole family almost day to night to the valley. We find out that we were moving here and we needed to quit most of the things that we had over there. And of course, you ask that question, what am I going to do now? You know, I was starting my journey. I was in my early 20s. I was just like, what am I going to do now? So when I asked my dad, he says, I work all my life for us to have this privilege in case something happened. So now you go do what you love. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I drove my car to UTPA, now UTRGB, and I signed for a master program in the theater department. And my whole life changed. And that's where I met Ana. We met 9 years ago, and we were friends for 4 years. But back in 2014.
Yeah, in 2014, we were talking about our passion. And well, it's the same, art. So that's what it drove us to start creating Creative Art Studio.
Creative Art Studio is a collective of artists from all different disciplines, dance, theater, art, music, who are to ignite social change and community development through the disciplines that we teach. So we would like to be very clear because we only have 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes. We don't want to think of us as a regular after-school program in which I can go learn guitar. Yes, you can do that. Yes, that's part of it, but that's an excuse. And I'm telling you right away because I want your best advice. That's just an excuse. This is a tool for community development. Every kid we get, every adult we get, from 4 years old to a 78-year-old that quote unquote said, I would like to learn how to play the accordion before I go. That's my dream, and we're helping him play the accordion. So everyone that we have, it's an opportunity for us to ignite change. That's what we want to do. For a few hours a week we have them, we want them to become better human beings. Because that's what happened to us through art. It changes our lives. It makes us see different things. So that's what we're doing. We have 3 locations now. One in Hidalgo, our hometown. Another one in the corner of McAllen, Hidalgo and Far, which is Dicker and McCall. And another one here in McAllen, 2 blocks north of this building at the McAllen Creative Incubator, for which we're really thankful, guys. Thank you for making that happen, because it's been such a bless. We recently joined the McAllen Chamber of Commerce, and the possibilities just open for us. We see a whole new world possibilities here in McAllen. We were doing our thing for a few years over there in Hidalgo, but we realized that we wanted to go big and go home, you know what I mean? We got more than 400 students a year. We help schools throughout 8 different cities in the valley, from San Benito to La Roma. You know, we have been working with IDEA, with Montessori, Hidalgo ISD, McAllen ISD, PSJA, Valley View. So we've been around, we've been doing our share, our part. And we're currently granting 160 students a year who don't pay a dime for their education. So not too long ago, we realized that was a route that we wanted to take, start applying for grants, and start looking for like federal funding and whatnot, even from state funding, and we've been granted, thank God. We are currently applying for CDBG here in McAllen. We just got news yesterday for the urban counties, so they're in Alamo, and they're gonna grant us $25K for this coming year, school years, starting in August. And that's been our mission, like seeking for fund to help all the students. So yeah, you're gonna ask yourself, well, what about the public system? They have fine arts too, they have mariachis, and they have band. And yes, they do, and they're doing their part too. But we're kind of like working with the underdogs. We're kind of like taking all those kids who don't necessarily fit the standardized education system, you know, like special ed kids or kids who audition for a mariachi program and don't get in, or we prepare them for them to get in. So we started our mariachi a couple of years ago, and all of them were not part of any school program. We can probably say now that 80% of them are playing in their schools, in their mariachis, in their bands, in their conjuntos. So we've been partnering with different entities, with private businesses and cities. We recently partnered with State Farm Marina and the Border Fest, and we were there for 3 days. We got thousands of children. One day we got 500 children at the same time. We worked with the community. We partnered with different artists doing, what do we have at the Border Fest? Would you like to tell them?
Yeah, we were having ukulele, piano, singing, percussion, yoga. We were doing some crazy hair, some tattoos, and photo booths, so it was really, really fun.
So really what we like to create is experiences for these children. We want them to believe in themselves. We want them, first of all, to take ownership of their learning process. It's a co-intentional pedagogy in which the student becomes a student teacher and the teacher becomes a teacher student. And this is not really just for underserved community, this is for anyone. And we have gotten any student from all social strata. So we have been working with them and we've been growing. So I think the real question for us to you, like the advice that we want to take today, this morning is, we are ready to scale. We're ready to go bigger. We're ready to open more studios. We have the manpower, we have the knowledge, we have the pedagogy, we have the curriculum. And we do have some resources as well, but we have more students lining up for our programs than the ones we can take in. We have literally 140 applications right now to apply for the grant, and we cannot grant them because we don't have the resources for those 140 students. But if I am to open a new studio tomorrow, we can make that happen. If you want to study in Edinburgh, we can make that happen in less than a month. We're ready. We have the knowledge, we have the manpower. We are going at our own pace, and that's fine. And if nobody's to ever partner with us, that's fine too, because we're going to continue doing what we're doing. But if someone approaches and says, hey, I want to be in, I want a part of this, we're ready. And we would love to have you, because we see in any citizen in McAllen, any citizen in the RGV, a potential partner to help us grow community and to help us grow consciousness through fine arts. Thank you so much.
So, I want you to talk a little bit, I know, and I've heard you talk about wanting to also do instruments and being able to donate instruments and make the instruments available for students free.
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about kind of that business model and what you're hoping to have happen.
Thank you, Steve. That's a very, very important part of our business model. We started working with IDEA, the charter schools, 4 years ago. And we opened a mariachi program. And the first year when we opened a mariachi program, they said, IDEA is not real big in fine arts. So they said, we have this money allocated to do a mariachi, but we don't have instruments. And you literally could see Anna. You can see Anna right now. Right too, right? Like she was carrying 8 violins in her back. The guitar teacher was playing like 4 guitars, and then the other guy with the trumpets and the guitarron. And I'm a witness of all that, because as a coordinator, I can get to see everything that's going around, and I'm kind of like out of the box kind of guy. So I'm like, okay, cool, what's going on? IDEA, which has a lot of money and a lot of resources, didn't have any resources for that. And I saw my teachers struggling every time, and parents struggling to buy instruments. So the kid might have the drive, the kid might have the desire to study, he might not have the resources, And we were like, how can we make this happen? Because from one programming idea, we grew up to 35 programs in 8 ideas with more than 40 teachers, with more than 1,000 students taking fine arts and education with us. And the main concern was lack of resources, lack of instruments. We didn't have the instruments for it. So we came up with this idea of creating a nonprofit. We have it now. It's named To Give, and it's a nonprofit that is seeking to get every student that needs an instrument in their hands. And soon enough, thanks to Steve and Jorge's advice, we're growing now to think of that we can also provide books or sports items or handicap items for students. Any kind of need that a student have in any school can be provided through this app. So what is To Give? To Give is an app in which schools, through their programs, after-school programs or finance programs or sport programs they can have students sign in and put a special need. Like I'm Joanna, 9 years old from Balboa, and I need a guitar, classical guitar, nylon guitar, $120 guitar, Yamaha C20. It's a Hermes music. So she applies for it, and we put the information up. So any of you, because it's a nonprofit, can go and seek for any items that you want to donate by purchasing the item, and it will be donated to Joanna. And that item, of course, will give you a tax deduction, ¿cómo se llama? Un bill, you know, and you can deduct your taxes through it. So I'm working this with my CPA, and we're working in a way in which companies and individuals can just allocate any tax money that they have to pay into this kind of needs. So what would we say? Not even beta prototype yet, right? It's more like an idea. We developed a website, and it worked a little bit. We helped like 20 students, but it wasn't really an app. Now, I just spoke to Carlos Mandujano yesterday. We're meeting pretty soon. He's going to help me. He's a techie guy. And he's going to help me develop an app for To Give. And we're hoping that we launch it next semester during fall. Thank you, Steph. Any questions about To Give or creative arts to me, Ryan?
Not about that, but have you explored whether or not there are any funding available from the National Endowment for Humanities? Because they do some public funding.
National?
More programmatic, not for like instrument purchase and things like that. National Endowment for Humanities?
No, I haven't. No.
If you just Google it, it's a federal government program which invests in fine arts, among other things. It's in the humanities. And there may or may not, they do certain kinds of programming. You have to fit whatever the calls are and, write a grant. It can give you visibility, and it also may be a way to provide funding because they fund not just university and schools, they fund public types of endowments like that. And I don't know if, Steve, I don't know if you've gone after any of those before.
We have.
But you might just want to check that out because it might be a source of some funding. At least it might be a source of some publicity and nothing else.
We'll definitely look into it. Thank you so much. That's where we are right now. We've been partnered with some grant writers because, as I said, we were the founders. For a long time we were teaching, like for a year and a half we were teaching until we realized we cannot do this full time anymore. So we start hiring more teachers. Then we stay with one class or 2 classes a week, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing one Saturday class and she's doing one singing class, and that's it. We are 35 teachers now, and then we hire some administrators, some culture people, marketing, and we're right now at that moment in which we need to partner with some agencies that help us write grants. We're currently granted by the Department of Family Services, and they grant us 98K a year to help 160 students. And they said, after you have done this grant for 2 years, you're ready to go anywhere, because supposedly they are really high on paperwork requirements. And we get audited every month, and we have to submit our bills, and they have our bank account. And it's been a learning process because they follow through everything. Like everything you spend, they'll pay for it for these kids, but you need to come clean. You know what I'm saying? So we have grown a lot. That's what I'm saying. I feel we're ready to scale. We're just at that exciting moment right now. We opened in McAllen, and it's been growing. So if you guys want to learn how to play an instrument, we're the McAllen Chamber of Commerce. The Creative Incubator. But yes, thank you so much. Any grants like those will be highly beneficial to our program.
How many kids do you impact on a yearly basis?
Close to 1,000, between 850, 900 kids on a yearly basis. But great question, because it's not only the kids, and we have seen this happening. Since we are a different model than the public system of education, we get to work with the parents directly, and we get to work with the siblings. Most of the kids that had a little baby, like a little brother, they were taking classes with us. Now those kids are our students. Like the 3-4-year-old now is 6, 7 years old, and now he's our student. And the teenagers that started with us, now they're in college, and we have 5 kids in the UTRGV music school right now. Yeah, we just started 5 years ago with teenagers, and out of those hundreds of kids that we serve, we got 5 into the music program. So it's little by little we're getting Any other questions?
Yeah, one of the student groups up at Trinity University San Antonio, one of the entrepreneurship groups is working on a similar concept. The student came out of the Southwest ISD in San Antonio. She was in their mariachi program, got to Trinity, and realized that she had learned technically how to play mariachi, but she hadn't learned the music theory and the broader perspective, and she actually couldn't get into any of the music programs at Trinity. So she's now working on a similar concept of yours to basically go back to her district and enhance the school program by broadening that area. The other, and getting to my question, is one of the things that she's looking at in her area, and I'm wondering if you see the same thing, is even the kids that are in the mariachi programs or in the music programs at school, what do they do once they graduate? If they stay here, if they don't go away and go to college, if they stay here, they do a vocational program or get a job, are there opportunities that you could exploit for the young adults, either as teachers or assistants in your program, or working to create musical ensembles, musical groups for the young adults to keep them passionate and keep them involved and engaged in the arts?
That's a great question. You want to tell him about?
Yeah, we actually have 2 ex-students who are working with us right now.
Teachers.
Yeah, teachers. They're doing the basic students, the ones that are barely starting. Yeah, so we have Luis, right? He was part of our mariachi program, so now he's teaching there with us. And another student, not being.
So then it's 3 students, right?
Students.
And we also started, yes, like 2 years ago, we started our first mariachi, because we were doing mariachis with Idea, we had 5 mariachis with Idea, but then we were doing our first mariachi, and then after the mariachi, we did a conjunto, Tejano, norteño music, and then we have 3 rock bands now, and it's been crazy, because parents become like you know, the parent boosters kind of thing, like they are there, they support, they fund them, they give money, because as I said, we sometimes do work with the other, not on purpose. It just happened that, oh, my girl auditioned for mariachi, she wasn't admitted, and she was crying the other day. I was like, bring her over. And we hate, I'm sorry, I don't like the word hate, but I do hate when people say, do I have a hands of a pianist or not? Do I have a voice of a singer or not? Come on, everybody, you can all sing. You can all dance. We're barely walking, we're already dancing. We sing before we speak. We do art before we write. We paint our walls before we learn how to write. So we're all artists. We're all artists, and that's part of us. We just like being told that we're not, but we are. And we're used to think that only Grammy nominators are real musicians, or that only actors and directors in the Oscars are actors and directors. When in reality, we're all artists. We're all artists. We all find ways to express ourselves. So yes, those kids who are with us are finding new ways to discover who they are. And the more they define who they are, the better understanding they have on one of the deepest truths, that we're all together. That we're all one, we're a community, we're one planet. You know what I mean? So it does fine arts, and it's not because that's what I do. Sports are great as well, but cuisine, I love cuisine. There's many things that help humans grow, but fine arts is a great way for human development. Any other questions?
How we can help you?
Well, definitely any advice, like the one we just got, like, hey, have you seen into this grant? Have you seen into the other grant? Because that's how we got our first grant. One of the parents were like, I saw this in a newspaper, and then we applied and we got it. How else could you help us? I guess if we can schedule a visit with any of you, I'm always looking for advice. You know, we're always learning. We're students of life and for life. So we are always asking for advice. We're always curious. And we believe that anyone and everyone has something new to teach us. So if you just approach us and talk to us about your insights on this conversation or anything that speaks on your experience, that would be beneficial to us. Yes.
And we're talking with them about teaching some of their creative classes this summer.
Yeah, and I will be very honest with you. I'm very impressed with the work you have done. I know it's on the cooks. It's barely gonna happen, but I can already see the potential of MX Land.
Yeah.
So if we guys can talk about that anytime, I would love to, because you guys, I feel that you have the right vision on it. You have the right vision on it, and I'm happy that it's happening with McAllen, because you have everything that is needed to make it happen. Thank you so much, guys. Yes, thank you so much.
There you go. Thank you for the token of appreciation. That's pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much for coming. Our next meeting will be April 10th. So if you haven't signed up on the sheet out there, please do so. That way I can add you to the mailing list so you can get reminders about our meetings. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Good job. Let me smell your whiskey. Absolutely. I'm not a whiskey drinker, but let me smell it. It's not too bad. Actually, it's a sample. Yeah, go ahead. Why not?
Listen, this isn't finished. This is.
I can taste the smoky stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that weird? And that was like,
Even though it's funny, because like a lot of times they try to, they put it in the barrel.
Yeah.
With that smoky, you kind of get that
Yes.
smoky taste.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. This was, and the reason why I think that back, we were down in Oaxaca, and of course that's
Y'all was down there, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm not a scotch, and I'm not drinking scotch.